Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so this is the AP language class, and Sunny will join us later, I assume. Okay, so as usual, today is our first class meeting, right? So I'm gonna go through how we designed our entire course, right? So, you're gonna stay with me for 16 class meetings, right? If you're signing up for the second part for the advanced course to aiming on the exam, right? There will be another 6 class meeting, right? But the first 10 class meetings, we're gonna go through all the knowledge part, right? So here I have our outline, our planning for how we're going to develop our sections step by step. Okay, so you you will see I go backwards, right? So normally, if you kind of refer to college board's curriculum, it goes from multiple choice question and then move on to the free response question. But we're gonna do the opposite way. Okay. The reason why we're doing so is because I've been teaching this course for a decade, right? And it kind of makes sense to me if we started backwards from the free response. Here comes Sunny. Hey. Okay. So the reason we started from free response question, okay, it's all about essay writing. Okay. It's because in free response question, we're gonna produce 3 essays, right? And the first essay we're gonna produce is called synthesis, right? But even though it's a synthesis, it's kind of like your history DBQ. Okay, that type of essay. Hi, Sunny. Nice to see you again. All right, and then question. All right, and question 2, it's what we call the rhetorical analysis question. Okay, and then question 3 is argument essay. All right, and we're gonna go backwards. We started from question 3 because argument essay is the very foundation for any kind of academic writing. All right, so as long as we know how to present a logical argument essay. Then when we come to question 2 is the time we analyze an argument essay. Okay. So question 3, we produce our own argument essay. And in question 2, we analyze someone else's argument essay. Okay. So that explains why we started from question 3. So, because if we know how to produce an argument essay, we know how to decipher other people's train of thought. So far, making sense, right? So we will start from question 3, and we're gonna spend quite a lot of time to talk about what is a qualified argument essay. Is that come on? Okay, we've been writing argument essay for years, right? Yes, but according to our experience as well, like you take TOEFL or IELTS or like SAT, whatever. Okay, students tend to stock in step 1. Okay, so step 1 is what we're gonna cover today is how to decipher the prompt. Okay, that's very crucial because if we somehow misinterpret the prompt, the result will be we will end up producing an off-topic essay. And if we have an off-topic essay, that's pretty dangerous. Okay, the full mark for all the essays here will be 6. Right? If we produce an off-topic essay, the highest score we can get is 2 out of 6, right? So we're gonna be very careful. So we're gonna talk about how to decipher the prompt today, right? So basically what we do today, this is our agenda. We're gonna talk about course overview. That's what we're doing right now. And we're gonna briefly introduce how the exam is formatted, right? And then we're gonna move on to question 3, okay? How to write an argument essay, right? So for this question, we're gonna spend 2 class meetings together, okay, to go through, okay, step by step, deciphering the prompt, systematically to brainstorm for arguments, so we will have a logical reasoning, all right, to support our thesis, right? And then here on the far right hand side, you will see the assignment, okay? So after each class, we're gonna assign you a practice, all right? So you can kind of treated that like your review section. Okay, so to really convert whatever we talk about in class into practice. All right, so first class today, after today's class, okay, your assignment will be I will forward you the prompt from previous years, And your job is to choose whatever prompt you want, and you need to decipher the argument type. We'll talk about that. Okay, what do we mean by argument type? Okay, and based on the argument type, you can brainstorm arguments, and from your arguments, you will generate your thesis. All right. So this column right here indicates your assignment after each class meetings. Right. And right here is our schedule. Each class meeting, we're gonna focus on which particular questions in the test, right? So we go backwards from argument essay. Once we're done with that, we move on to rhetorical analysis. Then we can tell what the author's strategy is, because we know how to impose the strategy in our own argument essay, right? If we can do so, we can tell when other people is doing so, right? And then after we're done with question 2, we move on to question 1. Question 1 is another argument essay, but the difference between question 1 and 3 is what? Question 1, you are required to refer to the sources provided along with the prompt, right? So in the prompt, you will have a question. You are supposed to come up with a thesis, right? And then as usual, it's our argument essay, right? So you need to have argument and then evidence, everything. But in question 1, the evidence is right there for you. Okay, so you don't need to brainstorm for your evidence, all right? So you need to adopt the sources, okay, in your body paragraph and use that as your evidence to support your arguments, all right? So question 1 is what we call synthesis essay, all right? So basically, if you're taking history course, this question 1, synthesis essay, it's very, very similar to DBQ, right? So instead of you doing research online or in the library, try to find, concrete evidence to support your thesis or arguments, okay, College Board provides you with evidence, okay? But your job is to decipher this evidence and try to figure out how you're going to utilize it, okay, to come up with your own thesis, all right? So that's question 1 called synthesis, right? So after we finish all the free response 3 essays, then we're gonna march into part 1, okay? So part 1 is all about multiple choice questions, right? And in this section, we're gonna have a reading comprehension related question. We also have a writing section. Is actually a grammar, right? So we will save the multiple choice question in the end. We're going to cover that in the last 4 class meetings, right? So the first 10 class meeting together, we're going to cover all the necessary knowledge for AP language, right? And then after that, we can move on to focus on practicing the past paper and try to, talk about strategies, everything, how to nail a multiple choice question, right? So this is our design. And then, so that's first part, course overview. Okay, I'll give you a couple seconds to think about it. Am I making sense to you guys? Do you have any questions about how we are going to, develop our class meeting step by step? Julianne?
No
Questions? Okay,
no.
so I'm making sense to you?
Yes.
Thank you. Sunny?
No question.
Thank you. Ted?
I'm fine so far.
You're fine so far? Thank you. Okay, so we can move on to the exam overview. Okay, we kind of talked about that already earlier. Okay, but this is a announcement from College Board. Okay, so what we're going to see this May, right? It's like this. We have 2 sections, right? And section 1 is all about multiple choice questions, right? So altogether, we're gonna conquer 45 questions. How much time we have? 60 minutes. Okay, so time is, again, not a concern, right? And all 45 questions together, it weighs 45% of the entire exam, right? And any wrong choice in multiple choice section will not receive any punishment. Okay, so the worst case is we get 0 from a particular question. That's it. So if you somehow answer wrong, there's no punishment, right? That means what? Don't skip any questions. Don't leave any questions unanswered, right? So if you're not sure, you can skip that for now. And when you are done with all the section, right, and you come back and think again, okay, take your educational guess, all right? If you're down to 2 options, just choose one, all right? Because there's no punishment for wrong answer anyway. Okay, so for multiple choice question, reading question is similar to your SAT reading section, all right? And writing question is similar to your SAT writing section. So basically AP language is the combination of SAT's reading and writing in section 1, all right? And the only thing different from SAT is for AP language, the vocabulary tend to be a little bit more academic, okay? The passage we read in reading section tend to be a little bit more academic in comparison to SAT, all right? So you will see the vocabulary words, okay, requirement is a little bit higher than SAT, all right? So to nail SAT, your vocabulary counts requirement is somewhere between 6,500 to 8,000, right? Okay, and then for AP, you're like, looking at like an 8,000 to 10,000 range, okay? But as long as you're cool about SAT, okay, you're cool about AP, all right? So for this part, okay, you have 60 minutes. After that, normally you're gonna have a break, okay, but for how long, it's up to your coordinator that day. And then when you come back from your break, get ready because nonstop is a marathon. You're gonna write all together 3 essays, all right? And altogether, you're gonna have 2 hours and 15 minutes. So the entire exam, it's gonna take you at least 3.5 hours, all right? So make sure you have a decent sleep the night before, okay? The free response, we mentioned that in this section, we're gonna produce 3 essays, all right? And each essay weights the same, all right? And each essay's raw score is 6 points each, all right? And the 6 points, the rubric, it's very clear. We have 3 rows altogether. Row A is the thesis, all right? So as long as we present a defensible, clear on-topic thesis, we secure row A, and that will grant us 1 point, all right? 1 out of 6, right? That same rule applied to question 1, 2, 3. Okay, so for question 1 and question 3, they're both argument essay. In other words, you're gonna have a defensive claim addressed directly to the question, right? And then for question 2 is analysis, right? So when we analyze someone else's essay, okay, passage, we do not express our opinion towards the topic of the essay. So if the essay is talking about women's right, okay, in your question 2 rhetorical analysis essay, do not say I strongly support women's movement, because that's not the mission that we are asked to do in question 2. Our job is to analyze how the author expressed his or her idea about women's movement, all right? So your thesis statement will be something like that. The author incorporates figurative language, ironic tone, right? Or academic tone or serious tone, whatever tone you sense, right? To convey his or her opinion or idea that, okay, and that is the main idea you come up with from the passage, all right? So your thesis statement for question 2 gonna focus on how the author managed to express his or her key points, all right? So if we do so for question 2, we also secure row A for thesis, right? And then it comes to row B. Row B altogether 4 points, all right? So these 4 points is being divided into 2 parts. Part 1 is your evidence, all right? So how well the evidence is presented to support your argument, all right? So for argument essay question 3, the evidence is coming from your personal experience, your study, your reading, okay? Also could be like a hypothetical example, all right? But as long as we have a, example or evidence to support our argument, we are cool, okay? So row B, 4 points. The first 2 points, it's all about the evidence you present, all right? So as long as you present logical evidence to support your arguments, you have the 2 points out of 4 in row B, all right? So that's for question 3, right? For question 2, your evidence will come from where? Come from the passage itself. Because you claim earlier, remember in our thesis statement, we talk about, well, the author adopts figurative language, right? And then you're gonna show evidence where in the passage you see figurative language. So this figurative language will be considered as the evidence in question 2. That makes sense? So as long as you claim the author adopts figurative language and you also present evidence from the passage, then you're cool. You have the 2 points for evidence, right? And for question 1, the synthesis, it's again another argument essay, right? And how about the evidence now? It's from the source. From the source itself, okay? So let me show you the example right here. So this would be question 3, all right? So question 3, this would be your prompt, right? So the first paragraph, it's a more like a contextualization, okay? Give you the broad idea what this topic is about, right? So it goes, in 1891, Irish author Oscar Wilde observed, okay? So here is the quote from Oscar, right? He said, "Disobedience in the eyes of anyone who has read history is man's original virtue." All right, he claims so, right? It is through disobedience that progress has been made, through disobedience and through rebellion. Okay, so we know Wilde, his stance or his thesis, his claim is what? Disobedience is the key element or the engine to push human society to better, because we do have a keywords right here, progress, right? So progress, right? So according to Wilde, he believed that all the progresses our ancestors made back in history is mainly because of disobedience. That's Wilde's opinion, right? So now here comes our job. Wilde claims that disobedience is a valuable human trait, right? And that it promotes social progress. Oh, thank you, College Board, to conclude the main idea for us, right? So our job is to write an essay that argues your position on the extent to which Wilde's claims are valid, all right? So this is the prompt of our own essay, all right? So our job is to think how much you agree with Wilde's, all right? Completely agree, or to some extent you do agree, okay, or you totally disagree, all right? So that's our job, okay? So you're gonna brainstorm, if I agree, what's my reason, okay? What reasons I have to agree with Wilde's, all right? So if I disagree with Wilde's, all right, what reason, what arguments do I have, all right? So there's no correct answer. Your thesis, as long as it's defensive on topic and you can support your thesis with logical arguments and evidence, you're cool. This is question 3, all right? And then how about question 2? Question 2 is something like that. You're gonna read a passage, all right? And based on the passage, you're gonna do this. In a well-developed essay, analyze the rhetorical strategy that Thatcher uses to convey her message. So basically, we're gonna work on 2 separate jobs. One is what kind of rhetorical strategies I can identify from the passage. That's job 1. Job 2 is Thatcher uses to convey her message. Okay, so we need to identify what is her message, all right? So I have 2 jobs to accomplish, all right? Job 1, what is her message? Job 2, how do we know? Well, because there are certain rhetorical strategies, right? And we need to identify them, all right? So in our own writing, in this analysis essay, we're gonna talk about how various strategies that was utilized by Thatcher, the author, that in terms help Thatcher to convey her message, all right? So whatever strategies we identify must work to help Thatcher to convey her message. If the strategy is not helping Thatcher to identify her key points, we don't talk about it. We don't, because it's not helping, right? So whatever strategies we identified, they must serve the purpose to help Thatcher, the author, to identify her main point. That makes sense? That's our question 2. All right, we'll save that when we come to question 2. And the question 1, again, it's an argument essay, right? But this time it's a little bit different, right? Our prompt is here in paragraph 2, okay, right here. Then synthesize information from at least 3 of the sources, all right? When you take the exam, you're gonna see 6 sources altogether, labeled with alphabet order, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So we're gonna use at least 3 out of 6, but our suggestion is, if you can, use all 6. Use all 6. Why? What if we misinterpret one of them? If we only use 3, let's say we use A, B, C, right? But somehow we misinterpret source B. Well, in this case, we do not qualify the requirement to utilize 3 sources. Does that make sense? So if we use all 6 and somehow we misunderstood 3 out of 6, but that means we still have 3 sources we correctly interpreted, and then we qualify for the job right here, because they only ask us for at least 3, right? So as long as I identify, I understand, I interpret 3 sources correctly, I qualify for this point. That makes sense? So highly recommend you try to use all 6 sources in your own essay, all right? Just in case, just in case somehow we misunderstand 1, 2, or 3 of the sources, all right? And we're still safe. This is what we call buy insurance, okay? You buy insurance. So how about those 1 or 2 or 3 sources we somehow misunderstand? Will that hurt our score in this essay? No, it will not, all right? They only look for whatever source you correctly utilize in your own writing. All right, so as long as you can use 3 sources correctly and logically to support your argument, you're cool, right? Okay, so our job is to synthesize at least 3, right, of the sources and incorporate it into a coherent, well-developed essay, okay? And so far, we don't know what our prompt is, right? It comes here. That argues a clear position on whether monolingual English speakers are at a disadvantage today, all right? So monolingual English speakers, are they at a disadvantage today or are they not? So that's our prompt, all right? So once again, we're gonna decipher the prompt carefully and we're gonna cover that today, okay? What do we mean by decipher the prompt, all right? And what is the argument type this prompt is going to be, all right? So that's question 1. And the source looks like that. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to finish essay 1, the first essay, within 40 minutes? Don't worry. Even though you have a whole bunch of reading material, right? But we are reading selectively. We only select the evidence we want from the passage. So it can be like, a little bit narrow-minded. So it can select, for example, you say, okay, this paragraph, it's easier to argue. I'm going to use this paragraph as my evidence, and I can ignore the rest of the passage from source B. You can do that. You can, okay? Because when we are doing our research paper, right? If you're like having a school assignment asking you to write an essay, right? And based on a research you conducted on internet or at the libraries, okay? So you find some kind of sources, right? And you will select part of this source to be the evidence to support your argument, right? So when we do school research project, we do so. We are selective, right? We use the information we want only, right? So in AP free response question 1, we can do that as well. So you can just choose, a particular claim from source B, and you can ignore the rest. That makes sense? So as long as you see, okay, this one is easy to argue, okay, and now we're gonna use this one, and it's from source B. And that way I use one source correctly. And you just need to, go through another one, like a source A, we already take a look at that, right? B, and then we have D. Okay, so you go through all the sources, but you do not have to read every single line in all the sources, right? So this is question 1, and we will talk more when we come to question 1, right? So this is the FRQ part, right? And for multiple choice question part, College Board reformed it in 2019. Okay, so it used to be only reading comprehension, but after 2019, there's part of multiple choice question that include grammar part. So basically, it's just like your SAT, right? So we have a limited source to practice multiple choice, right? Because we only have 2019, 20, 21, 22, and 20. Year 2020, there's no multiple choice question anyway, right? So we only have 3 sets of past paper that we can practice for multiple choice questions, right? So when we're done with this past paper, any other source we can use to practice for section 1? Yes, SAT. Use SATs as your practice, right? Or if you use like, Princeton, Barron's, okay, those are also okay, right? But if you're using McGraw-Hill, okay, you're gonna be aware that McGraw-Hill's question tend to be more detailed when compared with the real AP test, right? So I would suggest you to use Princeton. Princeton is more similar to AP exam style, right? And when you're done with the Princeton, you can go with Barron, all right? Barron or Pearson, okay? But Pearson, they only have 1 or 2 practice sets, I think, right? But anyway, if we're out of like a practice material, we can use SAT past paper as our practice material, right? So this is what the exam looks like, right? So here for section 1 and section 2, all right? Now we know section 1 is pretty much just like SAT. Section 2, okay, that's why we're gonna focus in the first 6 class meetings, all right? So far, again, give you a couple seconds to think about. Do you have any questions about the exam format so far? If you do have questions, you can mute yourself or you can raise your hand. I assume that's a no. Okay, if that's a no, we can move on to our next agenda today. So we cover course overview, we cover this exam overview. So today we're gonna start from argument essay, all right? So here is our agenda for today, all right? So we check this one, done, right? So this first 2 parts done. So we're gonna move on to our argument essay, all right? So first thing first, the very fundamental elements that required in a logical argument essay includes right here: thesis statement, arguments, evidence, reasoning, and conclusion. All right. So I'm gonna ask you to kick in, okay, to contribute to our course discussion right now. So according to your understanding, Julian, what is a thesis statement?
So a thesis is your main point and your main message. So it's like a really short and very concise statement of what you're trying to prove, like the whole entire essay.
Okay, very good. So it's your main point that you need to prove later on, right? Very good. Okay. So your thesis statement, it's always subjective in any kind of argument essay, all right? Your thesis statement is subjective. Since it's subjective, right? So it's defensible. It's defensible. So you need to prove your thesis correct, right? So in our argument essay, let's take this one as example. Okay, so go back to Wills right here. We need to address to this question, right? So to what extent, okay, your position on the extent to which Will's claim are valid, all right? So Sunny, just without any thoroughly thinking, what's your first reaction to this prompt? What is your thesis statement to this question? What's your opinion to this question? Sunny? Is your microphone working? All right, I'll come back to you later. Ted, how about you do the honor? What would you answer directly to this question?
I would like to just say like what I would write about this.
No. What's your opinion? Your answer directly. Okay, like we're talking right now, right? So I'm asking you, say, hey, Ted, what do
Yeah.
you think about this statement? That disobedience actually help human society to make progress. So
I would agree.
you would agree or disagree?
I would agree with it.
Okay, so you agree with it, right? So that would be your position. You agree to what extent? Completely or to somewhat or
Partially.
partially? Thank you. Okay, so you have your thesis statement already. All right, so you will say, yeah. What would you say? Your thesis statement.
That I think that disobedience is a form in which progress is being made, but like not always.
Thank you. That's your thesis statement. See that? Okay, so that's a thesis statement. So your thesis statement basically is your opinion towards the topic that you are discussing in your essay. So thesis basically is your opinion. It's your opinion, right? So your opinion, you must point to a direction, right? So either you agree, you disagree, okay? That's your opinion. And your opinion must be supported by your arguments, okay? So here comes arguments. So what is arguments then? So thesis right here, okay, I'm just gonna copy paste. Copy and paste. Can I do that? Yes, I can, all right. So thesis is what? Note to yourself, thesis simply, it's your opinion, okay? So it is your opinion towards the topic that is discussed in the writing, right? So it's an opinion, all right? Remember that it's your opinion, all right? So there's no correct opinion or not, all right? And then you want to make sure your opinion makes sense, then you need to present your arguments. So back to you, Julian. What is argument anyway? What is argument to you?
Argument.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you made your thesis, that's your opinion. So now your argument is your argument. You have to argue, like you have to fight for your thesis.
You need to defend your own thesis, right?
Yeah, you have to
So,
defend.
yeah. So argument is kind of like your weapons, right?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So basically, you need to explain why you believe so. Is that right?
Yeah.
Aha. So you're explaining, right? So arguments are your reasons, all right, that you hold such an opinion in your thesis statement, all right? So basically, argument is the reasons, like why. Okay, so if I ask you this question, Julian, where is your hometown?
Chappaqua right now.
What?
I moved. Oh,
your hometown?
Okay, no. My hometown is technically Shanghai.
Technically Shanghai. All right. So my question to you is, all right, is Shanghai a modern city?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your opinion, right?
That's my opinion.
That's your thesis already, right? So your thesis is Shanghai is a modern city. Now, I will ask you why. Then you need to come up with your arguments. Why? Okay. Why you believe Shanghai is a modern city? Please explain.
The city is very developed, technologically developed. It has good infrastructure. And
so your first argument is infrastructure, right?
Yeah, infrastructure.
Infrastructure is modern. Okay. What else?
Yeah. I could say technology. Technology is modern.
Technology is modern. Okay, so number 2. technology, right? Technology, okay, it's modern, of course. What else? Right, the first two arguments are good. Right there, easy, right? And third, somewhere, I know it's where. Give me some seconds, all right? I know, it's there, okay. So if you need to support your thesis with a third reason, what would you say? Well, kind of challenging now, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have this agenda today. How to brainstorm your arguments systematically. Okay.
I'm trying to imagine that place because I haven't been there in a long time. So I'm trying to imagine.
Okay.
What makes it modern?
I do know there.
Transportation.
Okay, transportation. We have subways, right? We have high speed railroad.
Buses,
And we have what else? We have
motorcycles.
2 airports, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Transport. Shanghai is a financial center. Sunny. Yeah, thank you. Transportation. Okay. It's modern. Okay. So we have 3 arguments to support our thesis, right? Very good. Thank you. Okay. So that's arguments, right? But I will come back to your argument later on, right? Let's just leave it like that for now, right? So now we know, excuse me, what is thesis? What is argument, right? So now we need to talk about evidence. So what is evidence anyway? Evidence is what? Your thesis and your arguments so far, they are both very subjective. Agree?
Agree.
Because thesis is subjective for sure. It's your opinion, right? And your argument is according to you. You believe so, right? So that's your reasons, right? So if we continue to be subjective in our argument essay, it's not good. Why not?
Because there's no because if everything is subjective, you're not really proving anything. That's your opinion. Like you need solid facts and you need something objective to prove why.
Yes. So if we are being subjective all the way through the argument essay, you see, it's human nature. Okay. Nobody likes to be lectured, right? So if you're trying to persuade your audience to take your side without any objective evidence, right? You lose your audience right away. So evidence is there to what? To back up, okay? To back up your subjective, right? Subjective opinion and reasons so far, right? And so that your audience will be what? More likely to accept your reasoning, all right? So evidence is there to back up your subjective opinion and reasons, right? So good evidence could be like, somewhere from history, right? From scientific research or from your personal experience, right? So as long as it's, objective, okay. So sometimes you can make it up, like a hypothetical example, right? So in AP language, if we don't know any, facts, all right, to support our arguments, you can always use hypothetical example. That's okay, all right? So we have evidence already. Okay. Now, so if you say infrastructure is modern, right? Evidence is plenty. What evidence we have? Infrastructure is modern.
You can put like statistics of how many buildings there are, how many skyscrapers there are.
Skyscrapers, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, etc. Okay, so infrastructure. Okay, technology. What kind of technology we're talking about here?
It could be like devices. It could be like.
What do you mean by devices?
Like tablets, smartphones, TVs, machines.
Okay, but be careful though. Are those the technology that invented by Shanghai city?
No.
Okay, so you want to prove Shanghai is a modern city, you say the technology is modern. So you probably want to talk about the technology either invented or adopted by Shanghai. And you talk about smartphone, that's the citizens, right?
Yeah.
It's not Shanghai though. Be careful though. So technology, you can probably talk about how about the building? They have like, facial recognition,
Okay.
right? So you want to enter the building, you don't need a key card. You just look at the camera, they recognize your face, and you are granted, permission to enter. That's technology, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or Shanghai has this oh, do you have transportation? Okay. So what else technology we have in Shanghai?
Medical equipments.
Oh, right. Okay. So medical, that's a good one. Medical facility, right? Facility. Okay. And you talk about this facial recognition, right? Recognition. Right. I'm missing a G. Recognition. Software, right? Blah blah blah. Okay, very good. How about transportation? We have a high speed, right?
Yeah.
High speed train, right? And what else? All this app, right? Apps for taxi, all right, whatever. Okay, so that's transportation is modern, right? Good. So you have evidence. Good for you. Okay. Now, next element is what we call, where is it? Next element will be our reasoning. Okay. So reasoning is what? Reasoning is we do have evidence, right? But once we present our evidence, we need to figure out a way, okay, to link the evidence back to our arguments. All right. So reasoning basically is the bridge, okay, that link your evidence and your argument. What do you mean by that? The bridge that link your evidence and your argument. When we present with an evidence, all right, it looks pretty cool, but you need to figure out a way to link it back to your arguments. So let's use this one as example, right? So Shanghai is a modern city, and your reason number one is in Shanghai, you witness the infrastructure, right? Is modern, right? And your example is skyscraper. So how do you use this skyscraper to prove that the infrastructure in Shanghai is modern? How?
Say like skyscrapers. Like to build skyscrapers, you need a lot of architectural knowledge, and that just shows that that city is very developed because they're able to build. They have the resources, they have the knowledge, they have the ability to build such advanced structure. Yeah.
Okay. So your reasoning statement would be, it takes advanced technology, the overlap with number two though. It takes a sophisticated city structure or like city planning to present, okay, or to construct skyscrapers, right?
Yeah.
And Shanghai certainly managed to accomplish that.
Yes.
Okay? So Shanghai certainly managed to accomplish that. Therefore, from this perspective, Shanghai is indeed a modern city. So you have this reasoning statement to connect your evidence back to your arguments. If we are missing this statement, what is wrong about that? If we are missing it, what's wrong?
You're not making a connection with you're not making a connection between the like evidence and your argument.
Right. So if you have no connection to link your evidence back to your argument, your evidence is so lonely.
Yeah.
All right. And your reader will say, I know you're talking about a skyscraper, but I don't know why you're talking about it. Right? Because different audience, they have different life experience, right? So they may interpret your evidence in a different way, right? So not all the evidence are fit into your train of thought. So your train of thought is skyscraper requires sophisticated, city planning. That's your train of thought, right? But if you don't indicate that, me as the reader, I may have a different life experience. So when I look at skyscraper, I will say, okay, so Shanghai is a very adventurous city, like to challenge people with the fear of height. So Shanghai is not a friendly city. Can I conclude in that way? I can, because you're not telling me why this evidence is here, right? So now it's up to me, the reader, to interpret the evidence, right? So I'm just the weird reader, right? I was like, okay, so the evidence here proved that Shanghai is not a friendly city, right? It will challenge people with the fear of height, right? You see, I can interpret it that way. So later on, I will write an essay. I will say, Shanghai, it's not a friendly city. And I will say, according to Julianne, okay, Shanghai has skyscrapers everywhere. They're not friendly to people that has this fear of heights, right? And you probably say, hey, I did not say that, right? And I said, but you implied, right? Because your evidence is right there and you're not telling me why the evidence is here. So I can interpret your evidence in any way I want. Does that make sense? So be very careful. As long as you have evidence, you must present reasoning. So reasoning is the bridge that link your evidence and your argument, right? But most importantly is what? Your map to guide your audience, okay, in how to interpret the evidence. That makes sense? So with this reasoning statement, doesn't matter who your reader is. They can only interpret this particular evidence in the way you designed it. That makes sense? So you're like a tour guide, right? So follow me, okay? Look to your left-hand side. You will see the skyscraper, right? And let me tell you the history of it, right? So you're the tour guide. You're guiding your audience, okay? You're presenting the map for your audience, all right? Never, ever create a gap, okay, for your audience to use their imagination, all right? And that will be a dangerous way to present an argument essay. And that's what we call a logical gap, all right? So in your homework, if I give you feedback, say you have a logical gap here, then you know, oops, I somehow give the freedom to my audience to use their own imagination to interpret this evidence or this claim, all right? And then different audience will have different understanding. Does that make sense? Right? So that's how important reasoning statement is. Why we keep emphasizing this one? Remember row B in your argument essay? Row B, 2 points comes from your evidence, right? The other 2 points comes from your reasoning. All right. So if we're missing this reasoning, this train of thought, this map, all right, we can only get 2 out of 4 in row B. That's pretty heavy losing of credit here, right? So as long as we have evidence and then we have this mapping for our audience to follow, congratulations, you secure a 4 out of 4 in row B. So far, so good?
Yes.
So C is here, it's your row A. Okay, this part is your row A, all right? And evidence is your row B. Okay, so your row B, 2 out of 4, all right? And the reasoning is another row B. That's another 2 out of 4. All right. Conclusion is optional. Sorry to say that, but conclusion is optional in AP exam. All right. But if we do have time to write conclusion, what do we do in conclusion?
Summarize.
Of course, we summarize or like, restate
Thesis.
our thesis, right? Okay, in a different way, right? Different way. So basically it's paraphrase, right? Paraphrase it. What else we do? If we just simply paraphrase it, we can just, forget about it, right? What else can we do in concluding?
Make a text to world connection.
Ah, there you go. So connect it, right? Connect it to the universal problem, right? Universal problem. If we do so, this universal problem, it will be your row C, all right? Universal problem will be your row C. That's your sophistication, all right? So based on the prompt, you can relate it to the real world situation, right? So like, disobedience, that's question 3. Yes. Okay. Disobedience. Then you can relate it to our real world situation. We can talk about what? We can talk about disobedience, not necessarily like Tat says, right? To somewhat extent, right? So you can say, well, yes, most case, right? Disobedience is good, right? It pushes the society to move forward for better. But certain disobedience, okay, will only hinder the development of human civilization, right? If the intention is aiming for personal interest, right? And you can relate that to what? To this, what is that? The fascism, right? Or like the corruption, right? That we are dealing with in modern days, okay? So as long as you tie it to a universal situation, you present your sophistication in this way. But there are other ways we can present sophistication. I will talk about it later on, right? But today we're gonna focus on the first 2 parts, these 2, thesis and argument, okay? But note to yourself, these are the required elements of a qualified argument essay right here. All right. So in your question 3, you must include all these parts in your essay. And that same rule apply to question 1. Just in question 1, your evidence comes from the sources. All right. So far, so good? Okay. So now let's start with the deciphering the prompt, right? Okay. So why do we have to talk about that? So 1.1 checked, right? So this one is 1.1. I need to keep reminding myself I'm following our agenda. Now let's move on to our 1.2. All right. So 1.2 is deciphering the prompt, right? So let's talk about this part. When we decipher the prompt, we need to ask ourselves is which type of argument essay it is, right? So argument essay type. There are only 2, all right? Type 1, 1.2.1, it's what we call true false essay. Okay, true false essay. Next one, 1.2.2, it's called pros cons essay, right? So as long as it is an argument essay, there are only 2 possibilities. One is true false, the other one is pros cons. All right. So what do we mean by true false? True false is what? To prove a statement or a situation or a claim, okay, etc. True or not. All right. So let's go back to this one. No, let's use your Shanghai, that one. Okay. So when we talk about your hometown, right, we say Shanghai is a modern city, right? So this prompt fit into true false. Why?
Because it's either it either is or it's not.
right? Do we need to talk about the benefit of being a modern city?
No.
Because we're not required to do so, right?
No.
So be careful. When we see a true false topic, all right, we need to, constantly remind ourselves our job is to prove whether or not this statement is true. All right. We do not talk about the benefit or drawbacks at all. Never. Okay. So if we somehow misunderstand the prompt, it's actually a true false, but we somehow argue in pros cons way, then we will be writing an off-topic essay. All right. So let me give an example. It's not from AP Len, but it's from TOEFL writing. All right. So 1 year, the TOEFL independent writing, the prompt is, do you agree or disagree that advertisements are exaggerated in nowadays? All right. Do you agree or disagree that advertisements are exaggerated nowadays? All right, Ted, is that true, false, or pros cons?
Maybe like true false.
Why is that?
Because like you could either say that they are exaggerated or they're not, but there's like not really like a good side of being exaggerating or not.
Thank you, right? Okay, but that year, okay, you'll be surprised. Quite a lot of students ended up arguing, okay, why advertisements should not be exaggerated. You see, so the essay will be off topic. All right, so step one, be very careful. Make sure you understand it is a true false or pros cons. All right, so if it is pros cons, we are arguing what? Okay, to prove an action, okay, an action or a policy, all right, policy, either an action, a policy, or a proposal, okay, proposal, etc. Okay, generates to prove and generates benefit or drawbacks. That's pros cons. All right. So let's practice here. One sec. Okay. So here I have a whole bunch past paper, just the prompt for argument essay. All right. So let's take a look of 2012. Okay. Here is our prompt. All right. In a well-organized essay, take a position on the relationship between certainty and doubts. Okay. Weird question, right? So, Julianne. Okay. Do you think this is a true false or pros cons? Well,
I think this is pros cons.
Why?
Because it's asking you to take a position, so you have to wait on the relationship between certainty and doubt. So you have to like you kind of have to evaluate. It's not really saying yes or no, or like proving it true or false.
Okay.
So
it's a pros cons?
yeah.
All right. So this prompt, it's different. Why? Because we call this prompt like a semi-open question. It's not completely open. Okay. It has a direction. The direction is the relationship between certainty and doubt, right? So this is the topic we're going to talk about. But what kind of relationship we're talking about, we don't know, because the question is asking us to take a position on, all right? So we need to indicate our opinion on this topic, which is the relationship between certainty and doubts, right? So let's focus upon the first keyword right here, relationship. Okay, So our possible thesis will be the relationship between A and B is something, 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 right? So far, so good. So the relationship between A and B is something, something, something. Okay. So in that case, if I say the relationship between A and B, so let me type here. The relationship between A and the B is blah blah blah, right? So when we do so, right? You see this is blah blah blah. This blah 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 is part of our thesis, right? So that's why we call it's a semi-open question, right? So our position is no longer yes or no, good or bad. Our position is we need to come up with some concrete idea to fill in the blank that indicates the key term relationship. So I can say, well, the relationship between certainty and doubt, it's interdependent. I can say that. So they cannot live without one another. That would be the relationship. I believe so, right? So I believe certainty and doubt, they are interdependent. None of them can live without the other. So if this is my opinion, so I fill in the blank right here, right? So I will say the relationship between A and B is interdependent, right? Now, once again, back to you, Julianne. I like to call you Julianne. Sounds more like, you know, royalties, okay? So, Julianne, right? Don't you think so?
Yeah.
Julianne. Okay. All right. So Julianne, what do you think? Now I fill in the blank, right? So that's my thesis. And that's something I need to prove later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think again, is that pros, cons, or true, false?
I think now it's true, false.
Why is that?
Because now you're trying to prove why it's independent. Like,
right?
It is independent or no, it's not independent. So,
right? So this prompt, again, that year, okay, quite a few students somehow ended up writing, okay, why certainty is it's the best and doubt is not, and that's off topic. All right, because the prompt is asking us to identify the relationship between certainty and doubt. So we're gonna address to both certainty and doubt. But that year we have witnessed students write an essay arguing that we must be we must doubt our world constantly, because only when we doubt the world we can make a progress. Only when we doubt the world we will not, okay, be subjective. Only when we doubt the world, okay, we will not ended up, okay, create a tyrannical government. Okay, it's a good argument, yes, I agree, but it's off topic, because the question is not asking us, should we be certain or should we be doubtful? The question is, what is the relationship between certainty and doubt, right? So when you see this kind of prompt, be careful. Even though we are asked to take a position, right? But the position is semi-open, all right? The position is that you need to set your own prompt in this case. So when you say they are interdependent, and your next job is to prove why they are interdependent. Does that make sense now? Tad, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right. So be careful though. This prompt, if you ended up writing a pros cons, then you will be writing an off-topic essay. All right. So off-topic essay, your thesis statement is gone because you are not on topic, right? So row A is gone. When row A is gone, row B, the most you can get it's like a one from each, one from your evidence, one from your reasoning. All right. And complexity, sophistication, probably not, because you're already off topic, right? So an off topic essay, according to our experience, 2 highest out of 6. All right. So let's try one more. All right. How about 2011, Form A? The following passage is from Rights of Men, a book written by the pamphleteer Thomas Penn in 1791. Born in England, Penn was an intellectual, a revolutionary, and a supporter of American independence from England. Read APUSH, right? Read the passage carefully here. Then write an essay that examines the extent to which Penn's characterization of America hold, here is missing a word, it's called true, okay? Hold true today. And then we are supposed to use appropriate evidence. Okay, forget about that one, all right? So look at this prompt, all right? So Ted, what do you say? True, false, or pros, cons?
I would say maybe, wait, I'm not so sure which one I would choose because
Is it true, false, or pros, cons?
probably true or false, I think.
True or false, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because again, examine the extent to which, how much, right? To what extent, okay, how true or how not true, right? Penn's characterization of America, this is the subject, right? Hold true. We already have this key term right here, hold true today. So our job is either to say, oh yeah, Penn's characterization of America is still true today. That is exactly how Americans are like. Or is it, nah, Americans have changed throughout the course of history. So Penn's description, characterization of America, yeah, it was true before, but it's no longer. Okay. Like precisely describing America. All right. So this is a true false, right? Again, this is true false essay. All right. So is it so far 2 in a row? True false, right? So now let's see, 2011 B, all right? American essayist and the social critic H.L. Mencken, he wrote, the average man does not want to be free. He simply wants to be safe. In a well-written essay, examine the extent to which Mencken's observation applies to contemporary society. All right, so back to you, Julian. True, false, or pros, cons?
I think it's true, false.
Okay, why is that? When I ask you why is that, does not mean you're wrong, all right?
Okay.
I like to ask why is that? Okay, so why is that?
Because you're trying to prove
Mhm.
why does the average man, the average man does not want to be free, like that he wants to be safe. Like, why is it true, or is it false?
Yeah, why it is this kind of case, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Easy. We have 3 in a row. They're all true, false. So, do we have pros, cons at all? Yes, we do. Okay. So, right here, 2010 B. Consider the implication of a day on which no goods are purchased. Then write an essay in which you develop a position on the establishment of an annual buy nothing day. Okay. Position on the establishment of annual buy nothing day. So for this very day, okay, there's no trade at all. Okay. So Ted, do you agree this is a pros, cons?
Yeah, I would.
Why is that?
Because like if it's true, false, there's nothing to say that's true or not, because it
Right.
already exists.
There you go, right? Okay. So it's more like a should we have? Should we support an annual buy nothing day or should we not? Right? So if we say we should, that means we believe doing so it's gonna generate benefits. Agree? And if we say should not, that means what? Doing so, we're gonna ended up with some kind of harmful effects. That makes sense. So we do have pros cons in AP Land, all right? But more likely it's true false, all right? So be very careful. Okay, when you decipher the prompt, make sure you know exactly it's true false or pros cons, right? So for true false, most likely you will see the prompt is what? It's a subject verb predicate syntax. Do we know what is predicate? Predicate. We know subject, right? We know verb, right? And what is predicate? That's why we abbreviate into P, right? So what is predicate? Anybody? Subject, verb, predicate. Predicate. Predicate is what? Predicate is there. Okay, so a predicate is there to define or describe the subject, the subject's number one, identity. Number two, characteristics. Number three, state. All right. So let's try, right? So let's use Ted as the subject, right? So Ted, what is your identity? What are you?
Wait, what do you mean? Like nationality?
That's up to you. What are you? Are you
Person?
a thank you. That's very interesting. Identity. Ted is a person. Thank you. All right. Normally they would say Ted is a student, it's a boy, and you say a person. Yes. Okay. And your characteristic cannot come from you. That would be too subjective. Okay. So I would say Ted is adorable. Based on our conversation, I believe you're adorable. All right. So how do you feel now, Ted?
I feel flattered.
You feel fine?
Yeah.
Ted feels or Ted is fine, right? Okay. So you see, we have three statements right here. Each one fitting to subject, verb, predicate syntax. Subject is all the way through Ted, right? The verb either is be verb or it's the what? A linking verb, right? Feels is. And you take a look of the predicate, right? So the first predicate right here, identify your identity, right? So you're a person. And then the second predicate, identify your characteristic, right? You're adorable. And the third, identify your state, how you feel right now, right? So you're fine. Okay. So all these three statements fit into subject, verb, predicate. Now let's take a look at this predicate, right? A person, adorable, fine. A person, it's a noun, right? For sure. Adorable, adjective, right? And then we have fine, it's another adjective, right? So we conclude only nouns and adjectives can serve as a predicate. All right, only nouns, right? So we conclude that only nouns and adjectives, right? Adjectives can serve as a predicate, right? A predicate, right? So when you see the prompt, looks like that. Where is it? Shanghai is a modern city, right? We have subject, we have a linking verb or be verb, right? We have a noun. In this case, it's a true false. It's a true false. That makes sense. Even if we see that eating healthy is important. to any individual. All right. So even though we say important, right? It is still a true false. It is not pros cons. Why? Because our job is what? To prove that this subject fitting to this important. Important would be what? Characteristic. Is it? So in this case, our job is to prove, Is somebody talking to
Oh,
me?
I said adjective.
Right. So our job is to prove what? Our job now, wait a second, give me a sec. I know, okay, right here. All right. So our job is to prove that eating healthy is important. Our job is not to argue that should we or should we not eating healthy. Does that make sense? Because we have important, all right? That's the characteristic, all right? Even if I change this one, eating healthy is beneficial to any individual. You say, oh, beneficial, pros, cons. Nope, it's a true false essay. Because our job is to prove this behavior, this action, this activity is beneficial. If it is pros, cons essay, see, we want to prove this, right? Generate benefits or drawbacks. So when we say generate, is it happening yet? No, we believe it will happen. But when we say it is beneficial, it already happened. We just need to prove it does exist. Does that make sense? That's the subtle difference right here. All right. So if you say that so this prompt, if it changed to shall we or shall we not? Okay, follow a healthy diet plan. In that case, it will be a pros cons. But if the prompt is eating healthy is beneficial, it is true false. Does that make sense to you guys so far?
Yes.
Thank you. Sunny, does that make sense to you? You can type. Thank you. Tad, does that make sense now?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So as long as we know, okay, what type of argument essay we are going to generate, we already secure row ABC, okay? Because we won't have an off-topic essay. That makes sense? So this is the very important step, okay? Be careful when we decipher the prompt, ask ourselves what kind of argument essay it is. So as long as we see nouns, adjectives, this a true false, okay? And then go back to this one. Your position on the establishment of an annual buy nothing day. It's a pros cons, right? Because we do not see be verb. We did not see linking verb. It's an action. Establishing, okay? Establishing an annual buy nothing day. What do you think? So this action, go back. This action, right, generates benefit or drawbacks, right? So your position would be what? Well, I do not believe we should have this annual buy nothing day. Why? Because it can harm the market, right? And it's gonna cause unnecessary inconvenience to people's daily life, right? So I at least have two arguments to support why we should not hold an annual buy nothing day, because this activity, it's gonna generate harms. And that's a pros cons essay. Does that make sense? Right? So that's our step one, all right? Very important. Make sure we understand it is a true false or pros cons essay. All right. So once we establish that, then we can move on to the step two, how to systematically come up with your arguments. systematically. All right, systematically. All right. But before we do so, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll move on to the argument procedure, right? So I'm gonna leave this screen on, okay, so you can digest whatever we've been talking about how we decipher the prompt, and make sure you understand what characteristic fit into what type. All right. So let's take 10. I'm gonna mute myself for now, right? Okay, let's come back. Are we back? Julianne,
I'm back.
welcome back. Sunny, you back? Yes. Thank you. You're back. All right. Ted, you back?
Yeah, I am.
Welcome back. All right. So now we know how to decipher the prompt. We are already halfway there for argument essay, right? But next is like, the argument is that, oh my God, I can come up with the first one, but when it comes to the second one, I may need a minute. And the third one's, I know it's somewhere, okay? So today we're gonna talk about a system, okay? We can easily come up with, 3 arguments, no problem, all right? So, where is it? This one, brainstorm your argument. All right, let's go. Brainstorm your argument. All right, 1 sec. I will save this in-class note and I will send it to your TA later on. Okay, so you can review whatever we talk about in class today. All right. So when we're conducting the class, I would recommend you to pay more attention in understanding the logic, right? And of course you can take notes, right? But this in-class note will be saved and forwarded to you. All right. So here. Not 4, I want 1.3. Okay. So brainstorming your arguments. Okay, here we have 2 different ways. Why is it keep saying it's 4? All right. So first one, 1.3.1. Okay. How do we systematically come up with the logical arguments? All right. So first one, okay, it's what we call a players. Okay. Participants. Division approach, right? What do I mean by that? Okay, back to this Shanghai stuff, right? So Shanghai, so thesis right here, right? So our thesis now is Shanghai is a modern city, right? So Shanghai is a modern city, all right? Now we need to prove that Shanghai indeed is modern, right? So our argument is like, ask yourself, participants in this very topic, who are the players or who are involved? Not necessarily who, but what as well, right? So here we will use the Shanghai or modern city to come up with our division, okay? But in this case, since we're arguing the subject is a city, right? Shanghai is a modern city. So I will ask myself, who are in this city called Shanghai, or what are included in this city? All right. So this is what I will divide, right? So participant. So Shanghai, ask ourselves, Shanghai. Okay, Shanghai includes what? So Julian, who are involved or what are involved in Shanghai? It's a city.
People.
Of course, people, right? Thank you. Sunny, type what or who are involved in this city? You can type. While you're typing, Ted, what else is included in this city or a city? Other than people, what else we see in a city?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, of course. Okay, infrastructure. What else? Sunny, still waiting for your answer. What else is involved in a city? We know in a city must be people, of course. Must be food. Thank you. Food. Thank you. I like that. Okay, Julianne, can you think of anything else? People, infrastructure, food. Julianne, what else is in the city that we know for sure?
Businesses.
Business. Okay, business. Okay, what else? Ted, what else?
I'm tempted to say transportation.
Transportation, of course. Okay, just set your mind free. Whatever you can think about, you can see in a city. Just say it. Sunny, keep typing. Keep typing. Julian, what else you want to add? What we see in the city We have people, we have infrastructure, we have food, we have business, we have transportation. What else we have? What else we have in a city?
Can I say animals?
Of course, animals, right? What else? People, infrastructure, food, business, transportation, animal. Okay, that should be good enough. All right. And how about government? Nobody mentioned government. We have city government, right? And we have county government, the province government, right? So etc., right? So these are easy to come up with, right? So ask yourself, what do we see in a city? All the players, all the participants right here. Shanghai includes everything we just mentioned right here, okay? So our next job is what? Next job, okay, after, you know, coming up with all players, right? All players, okay, in this topic, right? We group them. Okay, we group them. All right. So do we have any overlap? Infrastructure. Can infrastructure include transportation? Is transportation part of infrastructure? Tad, you say transportation, right?
Yeah, not really, because
It is, right? No.
Yeah, but like infrastructure, isn't it just like buildings and stuff?
Uh-huh.
Like cars are like privately owned and move around, kind of.
Kind of. All right. So, but when you talk about infrastructure, yeah, it's pretty much like, you know, the whole public buildings, right? So you can argue in this way, because transportation is not building, but it's part of the construction in the city, right? So you can say city infrastructure. That includes your transportation system, right? Okay, and Sunny just type one more. It's enterprise. Okay, thank you. All right. So let me take a look at that. I was okay, transportation, enterprise is business, right? Okay. So infrastructure, transportation. Okay, these two, I'll probably just group them together. So we group them into a hypernym, right? I'll introduce this term. Do we know what is a hypernym? Hypernym, all right? So a hypernym, this is actually a Latin word, right? It's hyper plus num, right? So when we chop it off, then we're gonna ask ourselves, okay, do we understand num? Okay, num in Latin indicates what? Name, right? Indicates name, all right? Like a Ted is your name, right? But you cannot deny that Ted is also a word, right? So it just happened to be like this particular word is used to identify you. So that's your name, right? So num indicates word, right? And hyper is what? Hyper, this this prefix indicates above, right? Above or up, all right? So you put these two ideas together. Hypernym is the upward. What do we mean by upward? So hypernym is like an upward, right? So upward, basically, it's like, a general term to refer to a particular genre or group or family, okay? So let me give an example. Typical hypernym, something like this one, tool. Tool is a typical hypernym. It gives you a direction, but not with a detail, right? It's a group. So if you look it up in the dictionary, the definition for tool goes something like that. A tool is a device that can assist someone to achieve the goal, right? So that would be the definition of tool, right? So underneath this definition, you will see the next generation varies, right? So ask yourself, is things we're talking about transportation, right? Is vehicle a kind of tool? Julian, is vehicle a kind of tool? Or yeah,
I think so.
you think so, right? So we can place vehicle in this family called tool, right? Okay, so the next generation we have vehicle. What else we have? It's a tool, right? So it's a device that can help us to achieve the goal. It's approaching dinner time. So I'm thinking about tableware. Okay, so is a tableware a tool, Ted? Is tableware a tool?
Technically, yeah.
Right? It's a device, right? It can help us to achieve the goal, which is dining, right? Okay, so that's settled down. We have two generations, you see? So far we have two generations, right? So in this case, you will say relatively. Tool is the hypernym, okay, of vehicle. Tool is the hypernym of, no, I don't want this one. Tool is the hypernym of vehicle. You should go like that, okay. And at the same time, you can also claim that tool is the hypernym of tableware. Is that? Well, that's relatively. And how about vehicle versus tool? Well, vehicle will be what we call a hyponym. Hypo, because hypo means below, right? So in this case, we have a new term called hyponym, all right? So between these two generations, we can claim that tool is the hypernym of both vehicle and tableware. And then tableware and vehicle, they're both the hyponym of tool, right? But this is relatively. Why it is relatively? Because even the hyponym in this case can have its own next generation, right? So vehicle is what? It's a device that can transport anybody from point A to point B, right? So in this case, I can think of various kind of vehicle, right? Up in the air, we have aircraft, not necessarily airplane yet, right? And on the ground, think about automobile. You see, it can keep going on and on. Okay, I just use two examples to make it easier. Tableware, if we want to have some soup, we use spoon, right? One year a student told me straw. So we use a spoon, right? Straw is too dangerous. And if you want to have some salad, you use fork, right? And that very same student tell me hand. Okay. So we have spoon, we have fork, all right? Keep going on and on, right? So you see, if we compare this two generations, the previous hyponym now become hypernym, right? So vehicle is the hypernym of both aircraft and automobiles. You see how this goes, right? And then tableware is the hypernym of both spoon, right? And fork. So far so good. All right. And you can keep going on and on and on and on, all right? So aircraft, I can think of so many different kind of aircraft, right? As long as it can fly in the air and can carry passenger, right? That's an aircraft. So in that case, I can say hot air balloon, right? Hot air balloon. That's an aircraft. Balloon, right? You can talk about, what chopper, right? Helicopter, airplane, right? A rocket, right? In that case, Superman, it's a vehicle. He can fly, he can carry one passenger, right? Aircraft. Automobile, he can have what? A truck, SUV, right? Pickup, you name it, right? And spoon, can we have next generation for spoon? Oh yeah, you can have teaspoon, right? You can have tablespoon, teaspoon, tablespoon, right? You name it. You can also divide spoon into the material, right? Silver, gold, plastic, wood, paper, up to you, all right? So they all fit into this spoon family. Does that make sense? So it can continue to keep going on and on and on and on, right? So if you look at this diagram, does that remind you of something? It at least reminds me of a family tree, right? It looks like a family tree, right? So tool will be like the ancestor, right? And then the next generation and the generation follow, and then after that, keep going on and on and on and on. Okay, so each vocabulary word has its own family tree. You can always locate the generation by using this family tree, all right? So when the generation is more senior, it tends to be more likely as a hypernym, all right? And the more junior generation tend to be relatively, not absolutely, all right? Relatively a hyponym, all right? So when we have all the players that we brainstorm, right? And then next step is to group them into hypernym. Okay, so there will be a big group, a big family that we can argue about later on, right? So I believe, in my opinion, I would say infrastructure and transportation, I'll put them together. Okay, so in this case, I will have infrastructure because they are similar, right? So infrastructure and transportation, they are the same family. I kind of highlight them in green. What else? So we have business and entrepreneurs. That's pretty much the same thing, right? So I'm just gonna group them to family 2. Enterprise, right? Family 2. And then people, that would be my family 3. Okay. Food, animal. How about people, food? Put them together. Animal, I can put them together. I'll explain later why, right? Government, well, government, I will put them together with infrastructure. Right? So now I have 3 groups. And then I need to come up with a hypernym, right? So people, food, animal. I will just group them into what? People, food, animal. How about culture? I will have culture as the big group for people, food, and animal. Why? Because a culture is what? A collective set of custom, belief system, right? From a group of people. That's called culture. So people's, behavior, language, belief system, costume, right? So food definitely related to people, right? Animal, how people treat animal, right? That would be culture. So underneath culture, I can talk about how people behave, right? Or how people enjoy their diets, their food, or how people have pets, whatever. Okay. So this culture part, now I can talk about people's behavior along with their diet, along with the, how they treated, animals, right? And my job is to prove that the culture in Shanghai fit into the characteristic of modern city. I need to prove that. So I'll ask myself, what is the culture, the characteristic of the culture of a modern city? When we say this culture is pretty modern, that means what? It's diverse, right? It's tolerant, right? So in this case, I will have my first argument. The culture in Shanghai, okay, so culture. What did I do? Okay, so culture in Shanghai, right here. So I will say culture in Shanghai, right? In Shanghai, reflects a modern city's feature, right? Feature. All right. And then second group, what we have is the infrastructure, right? So infrastructure, transportation, government. You can group them into what? Infrastructure, transportation, government, economy. Economy probably is business and enterprise, right? So infrastructure, transportation, government. I will probably just group them into infrastructure. Okay, so infrastructure. This would be my group 2. Right. So infrastructure, I can talk about the transportation. I can talk about the government's, budget, okay, or government, right? Government's grant, okay. Their city planning, right? So here in this group, I just need to once again prove that, okay. Shanghai, right? Shanghai's infrastructure sets the model of a modern city. Okay, that's what I need to prove. And the third group, our group business enterprise. Okay, like Sunny said, I will talk about the economy, or I will talk about the market. All right, so the market. So economy is a little bit too general, so I'll probably just use market. Okay, because both business, right, entrepreneurs, enterprise, they're gonna conduct their transaction in the market, right? So market here we have the player once again, the next generation business, right? Consumer, right? What else? Business, consumer, market. Okay, shopping, platform, right? Platform, blah blah blah, right? So once again, in this group, what I need to prove is what? Shanghai, right? Shanghai provides a modern markets, a modern market for both business and consumers, right? Businesses, or I would say firms, right? For both firms. All right, so now let's see, we have three groups, right? You see the logic right here? As soon as we identify the participants, all the players, right? We group them into hypernym. So culture is a big family. Underneath that, we have people's belief system, the food culture, right? And we have like, how people entertain, or like a leisure, right? So you're taking your pets on a trip, right? Road trip, or like, take your pets on a vacation. That's also culture, right? So within this big family called culture, I can talk about people's belief system. I can talk about the food culture. I can talk about the leisure, right? Entertainment. That's all culture, right? So as long as I can prove that culture in Shanghai reflects a modern city's feature, check. That's my first argument. Because this argument support my thesis, Shanghai is a modern city, right? And second argument is what? Big family, it's called infrastructure, right? So I will talk about, the entire city planning, okay? Or if you really don't want, like, infrastructure, you can use city planning, all right? How's that? So let's change it to city planning. City planning, all right? So in this case, you can include everything though, okay? That's better, right? So we have city planning, right? So including infrastructure, transportation system, okay, the government's role, right? So we can conclude that, you see, Shanghai's city planning, right? Shanghai's city planning. City planning sets the model of a modern city. Once again, this argument logically and strongly support my thesis, Shanghai is a modern city, right? And the third group is the market, right? So that includes the business, the consumer, the shopping platform, everything, even the payment, right? How you pay. When you're in Shanghai, you go out, you don't need to bring your wallet at all. Just bring your phone, right? Whatever pay, Alipay, Apple Pay, whatever pay you want to use, right? But you're in America, you're in Canada, you need money, right? Or at least your credit card, right? So you need cash or your credit card. You can use an Apple Pay, but it's not as commonly accepted as, the market in Shanghai, right? So the market, right? I would say Shanghai provides a modern market for both firms and consumers, right? So the firms, they have, this international market, right? Where you see all this, global brands establish their franchise or headquarter in Shanghai, right? So that will make the firms easier to conduct trade, right? And then for consumers, right, it's shopping malls everywhere, right? And then they're located in, very convenient hub. You can go to the shopping center, okay, without driving. You take subway, you take whatever, bus, right? And then not to mention the payment methods, right? It's so simple. One phone that will keep you alive all day, right? So here we have three strong arguments, right? And support our thesis that Shanghai is a modern city. Is it that? And this will be very coherent and logical argument, because this is whatever players we can identify, right? So as long as I can prove that most of the players in this topic, they represent the characteristic of modern. So I conclude Shanghai is a modern city. Does that make sense? All right, I'll let you digest about this logic for a couple seconds. This is what we call participant division approach. All right, Ted, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, is that easier for you to come up with the arguments now, compare them before? Kat?
Oh, yeah, I didn't know you were talking to me, sorry.
That's all right. And actually, you can unmute yourself because only three of us, and Sunny's microphone is not working. Okay, so you don't have to mute yourself. All right. So, is this the way you used to come up with arguments, Chad?
Like not this in detail.
So how do you normally come up with arguments?
Like just find something that I could prove or like
Uh-huh.
write about, and then just like try to do it. And if it doesn't work, I'll just switch one.
Okay. And do you find it difficult to come up with the second and third argument sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, right? But if we use this participants division, will that help you to come up with a 2 or 3 even arguments?
I think so, yeah.
Is that right? Okay, so this approach is new to you so far. So you need to practice. Okay, so step 1 is just let your minds go free. All right, go free. Whatever you can think about, write it down. All right, and then you start to group them. And then you figure out a hypernym to serve as your argument. So my first argument is city planning. This is my argument number 1. All right. Argument number 2 is what? Market. Oh no, I skipped the number 1 then. All right. And the number 3 in this case will be here. Culture. See? All right. So culture, later on, I can prove in what way? A modern city tend to reflect, okay, or show cultural diversity, right? The more modern a city is, you see the culture tend to be more diverse, right? Because you attract people from worldwide, right, to visit or even to settle down in this city. Okay, so what do we mean by cultural diversity, right? We have people from various nations, right? And they have, different lifestyle, but nobody is like opposing to one another, right? And you will see in Shanghai, okay, you have various, you talk about food, right? You have various restaurants, right? So you have different kind of cuisine, right? You have American restaurant, you have Italian, you have Mexican, you name it, right? You have Indian, you have Japanese, you have Korean, right? Culturally diverse. And that's one of the feature of a modern city. See, so I prove Shanghai from culture examination, okay? We prove that Shanghai is modern, right? And second, we talk about city planning, right? Because a modern city, you see the city planning tend to keep in mind, okay, on not just the infrastructure, but also the entire transportation system, right? And that would be the first priority for the government to ensure, okay, the lifestyle will be convenient for the citizens, right? So thereon we can prove like what? The transportation, right? There's pretty much no, not a single corner you cannot reach by public transportation in Shanghai. right? You can either take subway, you can take the buses, right? So you can go anywhere in Shanghai, okay? And then you talk about infrastructure, right? And you talk about how Shanghai's city planning is, so logical or like a well-rounded. We have commercial zone, we have industrial zone, we have residential zone, right? We have what? City park, right? So all this together represent Shanghai as a modern city. So far, so good. Okay. And then we move on to the market, right? And you will say modern city, okay, you will see market is crucial, right? Because a modern city must represent a strong economy. Now let's take a look of Shanghai's market. Is a strong? Oh yeah, because not only we see all this, this Fortune 500 business, they have their franchise in Shanghai, in Pudong, Lujiazui, right? Okay, and then you see how this market is well designed to benefit both firms and consumers, right? When shopping make easy, right? Or shopping made sustainable, right? It will in terms encourage the growth of the market, right? And does Shanghai fit into that kind of feature? Oh yeah, definitely. So with these three arguments, we prove and we conclude that Shanghai indeed is a modern city. All right, Julianne, does that make sense to you?
Yep.
So as long as we can prove not all, but most players in this topic, they all fit into our definition, then we can conclude that, oh yeah, Shanghai is modern city. Okay, so let's go back to Julian's, your argument right here. Infrastructure is modern, technology is modern, transportation is modern. So you basically can group these three into one big family. Is that right, Julian?
Yeah.
Right? So you have one strong argument paragraph. You talk about how the city planning is modern. And then on top of that, you talk about the culture, you talk about the market. So your argument, I say, in your row B, it's a secured 4 points because your argument is logical and your evidence will be plenty because you have this hypernym allowed you to explore the next generations in this big family, right? So there are a lot of reasoning evidence you can talk about in this body paragraph. That makes sense? And same logic apply to second and third. All right. So this is how we systematically can come up with our arguments. Okay, so let's try true, false, right? Let's go back here. How about we try something, not so complicated to begin with. Okay, how about this one? This one, okay. Let's try 2006, Form A, all right? So first of all, let's try to determine, to decipher what kind of essay it's gonna be. Is it true, false, or pros, cons? Ted, what do you say? True, false, or pros, cons?
Maybe true, false, because it's asking if it's worthwhile.
It's the value of such public statements of opinion, right? So we need to see what is the statement, all right? So from talk, radio to television shows, right? From popular magazines to web blogs, okay. Ordinary citizens, political figures, and entertainers express their opinions on a wide range of topics. Are these opinions worthwhile? Does the expression of such opinions foster democratic values? Okay, so you believe it's a true, false, right? Even if we have this key term called value, it is still a true, false. Julianne, do you agree?
I agree.
Why?
Because
Because even if we have
It's
this
like, it's like a
keyword
yes
value,
or it's just like a yes or no. Yeah,
right?
it's like, does it does it foster democratic values or does it not?
Mhm.
So because if you say like yes, it does,
Uh-huh.
that's a true or false. It's not, you're not doing a pro or con of like the value.
Very good thinking. Yes,
So
right? Yes, yes, I agree too. All right. So this prompt is a true false, right? Because if we plug in, okay, whatever statement we are being told earlier, right? So here is that, are those opinion worthwhile? Is that, yeah, these opinions do worthwhile. And then we need to prove why it is worthwhile. Okay. And then does this expression, okay, foster democratic values? Oh yeah, it does foster democratic value, right? So we cannot prove this statement correct or the other way around, right? But we are not arguing on the topic that should we allow this public opinion continue to express through the public media. We're not arguing about that. We're not talking about should we or should we not. We're talking about does it or does it not, right? So it's a true false statement. Very good. Okay, so in this case, our next job is to brainstorm the argument, all right? So in this case, do we have any players in this activity? It's what? It's a public statement of opinion, right? So we want to prove that. Let's say yes. Okay, let's assume that our thesis is yes. It does present value, right? So how do you prove that, Ted? Now use this participant division. How would you come up with 3 or at least 2 arguments to prove that yes, public statements of opinion presents value?
Like maybe find sources that like that talk about like one guy speaking about something and other people agreeing.
So player, we are talking about player. So in this public statements of opinion, who are the players? I can think
The
of 2,
public?
or I can think of 2 right away. The person who address the opinion and the audience, at least 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2. Can you think of the 3rd player?
The one who's like writing it down.
Hmm?
I mean, third.
If it's blog, the author is the speaker.
Oh, yeah.
And the reader is the audience. So we have speaker versus audience. We have 2 players already. Do we have a 3rd player?
I can't think of one because there's like only one person writing and there's somebody reading it.
Okay, but in terms, this somebody reading it may take action upon this writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that will be interacting with others, and that will be the society getting involved. Agree?
Oh, okay.
Right? So I can pinpoint 3 players in this action: the speaker, the audience, the society. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Right? And are they hypernym? I believe so. Because speaker, you can talk about various kinds of speaker, right? So it could be a businessman, could be a politician, could be a student, could be a simple housewife, right? They're all speakers, right? You can write your own blog, right? So my first argument will be focusing on proving public statements of opinions present value for the speakers. Okay. And second argument will be this public statements of opinion also generate value for audience. All right. And my third argument will be based upon the audience reaction, right? It will also secure the value for the society as a whole. Then I have 3 arguments, right? And underneath the first argument, the speakers, I can talk about various identity, businessmen, school teachers, right? Housewives, right? You name it. Even like the celebrities, right? Politicians, right? And they get the platform to express their opinion. What kind of value is there? Okay, that's your first body paragraph. And the audience, right? Could be like students, could be like consumers, right? Could be like what else? Could be like public officials, right? So whoever work for the government, right? It is a public opinion, present value to them. Oh yeah, right? So students have more options, right? To really examine the world, right? So it will open the students' mind, not just limited to the campus. They can be exposed to the society before they even graduate, right? For the politician, they can get to know what people really desire, right? And that in terms will help the government to come up with more desirable policies and regulations, right? To entertainers or celebrities, right? This general public opinion, right? Can set the course for their future performance, their work, their artwork, right? So each group of the audience, they both receive the value from these opinions, right? That's your second body paragraph. Third is the society, right? So with this general public's statements of opinion, right? This platform enable the public to communicate, right? Their respective opinions, their belief, right? It would avoid unnecessary conflicts, right? And in terms, we would have a better, stable, right? Society, or more like a harmonious, right? Peaceful society, right? So that's the societal value to the third player. That makes sense? So in this case, we use the player, okay, approach to decipher this prompt and come up with 3 arguments. Because in this action is different from Shanghai is a modern city, right? Because there is no action, right? Or there's no events, it's just no Shanghai is modern. And then the player I can identify is whatever I can find in the city, right? And in this case, 2006 Form A, I do know at least there are 2 players, the speaker and the audience. But as long as you have speaker and the audience, and you know, the reaction from the audience is going to reflect into our society. All right, so society is our third player. All right, so think about that. Does that make sense to you, Julianne and Sunny?
Yeah.
It makes sense, right? Okay, so now let's thank you. Okay, let's try one more. Okay, how about 2006B? So our job is to take a position on the issue of compulsory voting. Interesting. So in many nation elections, only a fraction of eligible voters actually cast ballots. So it's the voters turnout, right? It's tend to be low. For local elections, the voter turnout is often even smaller. To prevent this state of affairs, some countries, such as Australia, make voting compulsory, mandatory, right, for all adults. So our job is to write an essay that draws upon your reading experience or observations for support. That's your evidence. Take a position on the issue of compulsory voting. Okay, what do you think? True, false, or pros, cons? True, false, or pros, cons? When you're ready, you can type your answer in our chatting room. I can see. Is that true, false, or pros, cons? All right, please show your answer. 2006 Form B, true, false, or pros, cons? True, false, Sunny says. Julianne, Todd, what's your answer? True, false, or pros, cons? Pros, cons, Ted says. Interesting. We have one each, one true, false, one pros, cons. Julianne, you are the key man now. What do you say?
I'm thinking a lot right now.
This one is pretty confusing though. Is it true, false, or is pro, cons? So we have two different opinions so far.
I feel like it's pro, cons.
Pros, cons. Okay, so you started with Ted. Is that right? Okay, why? Why is it pros, cons?
Because it's saying, okay, like take a position on the issue of compulsory voting. So this is not really a true or false kind of thing. Like it's not saying like it's true or false. Like it's more saying like, is this policy or is this action good or bad mostly? Yeah, like it's more like evaluating, like based on what you know, what do you think? Do you think this is good or is this bad?
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you right here. Is this good? Is this bad? And that fit into true, false. Because good, bad, they are predicative. Is that right, Julianne? So if your position is compulsory voting is good, then you need to prove.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's true, false, right?
Yeah. Because if you say, okay, compulsory voting is good, then you have to prove it true or false. Yeah.
Okay. So Ted, why did you say pros, cons?
I said pros, cons because like if it was true or false, then it would like ask you for something, but this already exists.
It's already exists, right?
Yeah.
So it's pros, cons. So you are arguing. So what's your position?
So like I would say like making it forced for people to vote is like good because then people aren't like lazy to not put their voice in, and like the government can actually do what the people wants.
You just say making voting compulsory is good. You just say that.
Oh yeah, okay.
And that will be true, false, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it making voting compulsory is good, and you need to prove why it is good, right? It become subject verb predicate statement, right? Your thesis is a subject verb predicate statement, right? So your job is to prove that the subject fitting to the characteristic you just described, it's good, right? So it's a true, false, right? But can we make it pros, cons, this prompt?
Yes.
How?
You could say like you could say prove how compulsory voting is beneficial.
It's gonna be what?
Like prove how compulsory voting is beneficial.
That's true is true, false. Prove it is, as long as it's is, right?
Okay,
But we really can make this prompt a pros, cons. We can.
Okay. Oh.
You know how? Because the prompt is pretty like, again, it's semi-open, right? So we need to take a position, right?
Yeah.
On the issue. This issue is a neutral word, right? This issue, this case, this situation, this policy, right? So how do you view this policy? You can say it's good or it's bad. Or you can also say, should we keep this policy or should we not? Right?
Yes.
That would be your position as well. Agree?
Yes.
Right. So if we generate our thesis statement in this way, right? In a democratic society, right? Free election, okay, free and fair election. It's a characteristic, right? To define. You can say, well, in modern days, a free and fair election is the characteristic to define democracy. You can say that, right? However, okay, to uphold democracy at the expense of people's rights, right? Or people's freedom of choice, right? Will not be an ideal or smart policy, right? In this case, the compulsory voting should be eliminated. So our thesis is what? Should be eliminated, right? So when we argue we should cancel this policy, then we are arguing the cons of this policy. That makes sense? But if we say we should keep, we should not only keep, but at the same time promote this policy to worldwide, then we are arguing why we believe doing so it's beneficial. It's gonna generate benefits because we do have a key term called should or should not. Does that make sense? So this prompt is up to you though, okay? So when you argue that this policy is good, then it's a true false. When you argue that we should cancel this policy, and then it will be pros cons. That makes sense. So this kind of a prompt, it's semi-open. Again, it's a position, right? But this issue is neutral, right? So you can say this issue is good, is bad, or this issue should not exist, at most, right? And then that case is pros cons. That makes sense. So it's different from here. This is a value, right? So value is not should or should not, because if you say there's value, you're gonna present what kind of value, right? And then earlier, this one, right? Establishment of annual Buy Nothing Day. Okay, your position on it's already established, right? And you can say, well, we should not have this Buy Nothing Day, or we should have, right? So it's already there. So what do you think, right? And they keep going back right here. Relationship between certainty and doubt. Well, in this case, we already have a relationship right here. It's not pros cons anymore. That makes sense. So you gotta be careful. The prompt, okay, sometimes we have the option to navigate how we developed this prompt. Now this one, how we developed this prompt. Okay, we can develop into a pros cons or develop into a true false. In this case, either way will be considered as on topic. But the relationship, that one, it can only be true false. That makes sense. All right, so now we agree either way, right? So let's make it pros cons. How's that? All right. So either we should promote this policy, or we should cancel this policy, right? And then gonna talk about pros cons in this case, right? Okay. So let's use players participation. I mean participants division. All right. So Julianne, think about who are involved in this compulsory voting.
Government.
Government, of course. Who else?
Citizens.
Citizens. Who else is voting?
Oh,
So vote.
Presidential candidates.
Could be, right? So candidates, right? Or like a policy could be, right? Because we can vote on candidates, or we can vote on a policy,
Oh yeah.
right? So at least
Yeah.
3. And if you want, you can talk about the society, right? The nation, right? So we have at least 4 players in this case, right? Government, citizens, candidates or policies, society as a whole. We have 4 players, right? So if we say that we should keep this compulsory voting, right? That means all, or not all, we can say most players will enjoy the benefits, right? So how do you prove that keeping the compulsory voting will generate benefits to government, citizens, candidates, policy, and the society? That's your next job to think about, right? So government, Chad, what do you think? Compulsory voting can benefit the first player, government. How?
It could benefit the government by making it more fair and representing of the citizens.
Does that benefit the citizen then? Okay. Fair citizen, that would be citizen, right? Yes, Julianne, can you think of
Like
any
how,
benefit?
like how it benefits the government.
How?
I think that if it is compulsory, then there's more input. Like then there's more like more representation.
So this election, okay, since it's compulsory, right? It will result in a more well-rounded public opinion, right? And in terms that will help the government to better what?
Better future policies, better their decisions for everyone, for the citizens.
Could be, right? Or a better governing or navigate the country forward, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
It's a better future for everyone.
Right. Okay. So government benefit from this compulsory voting, right? Because they can generate, they can be aware of, more what? More reliable, okay, or more sufficient public opinion, right? That's government's benefit, right? And then Tad talk about fair and I'm sorry, I forgot it. What's the other one? Fair and what for the citizens, the voters?
Like representation.
So citizen can benefit because they can really, okay, have a representative, okay, to speak for them, right? Because you vote, right? So your voice can be heard through the representative, right? Very good. How about the candidate, him or herself?
More votes.
Look good, right? Look good. Or the candidate?
More votes, more supporters, more fans, more money, probably.
What? Okay, more money, probably. Okay, or they will know. They
will know what people want.
Right.
More.
So we'll actually motivate them, right, to actually do their job.
Yeah.
Right? So that will actually motivate the candidates, okay, to actually do the job. How about the society as a whole?
Then it will improve more because if the government knows what everyone wants more and like there's more representation, then there's better policies and they can do more to help everyone.
Okay. There you go. See, now we use this participant division approach. We already proved that doesn't matter what kind of a prompt, true, false, pros, cons, or like a semi-open is up to us, all right? We can use this participant approach, all right, to come up with at least 2 or 3, I would say 3 arguments. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's the first approach. It's called participant division approach, right? Okay. But sometimes, okay, when we try to figure out the participants, okay, we may stuck. It's like, I don't think there are participants at all, or maybe there's only one. Could be, right?
True.
Okay. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in that case, okay, we have a second approach, which is 1.3.2. Okay, so 1.3.2. Okay, if we are missing participants, okay, then we use what? We use the keyword division approach. What kind of prompt will have no participant? Back to the TOEFL example, all right? That one, the what? Advertisement, right? So advertisement is exaggerate, exaggerated. Did I misspell that? Okay, you do not see that. Okay, right here. So advertisement is exaggerated nowadays, right? Nowadays. Yeah, nowadays. All right. So if this is our thesis statement, right? So do we have a participant?
Look, maybe.
So it's similar to Shanghai is a modern city, right? But Shanghai is a city, we do have participants within the city. But advertisement, can we think of any participants?
I can think of examples.
But can we think of any players in this subject called advertisement?
Like companies.
Well, company is the one who make it exaggerated, but we need to prove.
Oh, because the
ad.
Oh, no, because the advertisement is a
product, the finished product.
There was a name for it. Hyponym,
right? Okay, so in this case, I was like, all right, can anybody think of any participant in this advertisement?
No.
Difficult, right? Because okay,
what about the guy who's watching it?
That's indirect evidence.
Oh yeah.
Right? If the audience feel exaggerated, right? This ad is exaggerated, that's indirect, because our job is to prove the subject is exaggerated. You can talk about the audience, yes, but that's indirect because the audience is not part of this advertisement.
Okay.
So in this case, we use what? We use keyword division, right? So when we say keyword, all right, what is keyword? Right here. Keyword equals to either a noun or an adjective. We don't care about verbs, okay? Adjective, all right? So keyword is either a noun or adjective, all right? So this is the prompt, right? This is the thesis statement. So we have advertisement is a possible keyword. Exaggerated is a possible keywords, right? So let's see which one I think is easier to divide. I think is advertisement. Why? If I want to prove that advertisement is exaggerated, right? I divided advertisement, not player though, but type, right? What type of advertisement we have?
YouTube ads, click, like when you, the ones that pop up, like pop-up ads, website ads, there's social media ads.
Now you see, you cannot stop, right? You have all these ideas now, right? So, easily, all right. So we want to prove advertisement is exaggerated. So my job is like, it doesn't matter which type of advertisement you name it, I can prove that they're exaggerated, right? So I can conclude that advertisement doesn't matter what kind, they are exaggerated. Does that make sense? So you can say, social media, right? Social media. What else?
Like billboards, like physical, like poster ads, like when you drive by the highway
billboard. Billboard. What else?
Like website ads.
Radio, right? So we have visual, we have audio, right? We have what? How about
Like
government
airplane.
propaganda? Propaganda, right? Right. It's propaganda already, so exaggerated, right? Could
Yeah.
be. Is it?
Oh, the paper ads, like when you walk on the street and someone's giving them papers out.
Flyers, right?
Yeah, flyers.
Fly.
It could go anywhere, honestly.
Right, you see?
Spotify ads, like when you're listening to music and then there's just an ad.
There you go, right? So such and such, right? Okay, see? Now
Yeah.
our job is to prove that all kinds, now at least most kind, right? Advertisements, they are exaggerated, right? So social media ads, they are exaggerated. How? How?
They are photoshopped.
There you go. Thank you. Photoshop, right? And billboard,
Also photoshopped.
sometimes it's just painting though, right?
Yeah, like it's not, maybe like they, like maybe the facts are not true.
Right. Because they will draw your attention, you're driving, right? So they will highlight the feature that is not necessarily true, right?
Yeah.
Direct the consumers. Radio, exaggerated. Okay, it's audio, right?
Yeah.
The way they talk about it, the tone, exaggerated, right? So
Yeah.
not a normal individual will react to a situation that way, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you listen to the radio and say, oh my God, we don't do that in real life, right? It's like, okay, the actors, right? They are not realistic. They're exaggerated, right?
Yeah, they'll be like, they'll be like, oh, did you hear about this new thing? No. Oh, well, you should try it. It's the best thing ever. Like, it's always something like that.
Right, but we don't do that in real life, right?
No way.
Exactly. I was like, oh, okay, good for you, right? And then this propaganda for sure, right? They will use any means possible, right, to brainwash. Okay, so propaganda to begin with is a brainwash, right? And flyers, right? They will hide the fine print, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they always hide the fine print, right? And after you bought it, it's like, huh? It's like, all right, in the flyer, you see iPhone come with the charger, but when you buy it, there's no charger. Right?
Oh, yeah. Or like they'll be like, side effects include headaches, back.
Right. So they exaggerate their function, right? And hiding this possible fire, backfire, right? So as long as we can prove that all these advertisements, they're exaggerated, and we conclude, right? There's no exception. Does that make sense now? So for this, this kind of prompt is like, okay, I know I can use participant division, but when I look at that, I say, okay, who is the player? Nobody, right? Only advertisement itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, we divide the keywords. You divide it into the next generation. What types of advertisement? Okay, so this kind of approach actually we can use here. You see, this one was a public statement of opinion, right? And we used participant earlier. We have the speaker, the audience, the society, right?
Yes.
Can we use keyword division instead?
Yeah.
Right here, value, right?
Yeah.
Or you can divide opinion, right? Public opinion. So I can either talk about what kind of opinion, or I can talk about what kind of value. Yeah. So if I divide value, I can talk about what? Okay. Public statement of opinion has the economic value. So we will not.
Social, political.
There you go, right? Economic value, social value, right? Political value, see? Keyword division.
Yep.
All right. And then opinions, right? So opinion could be divided into what? Again, political opinions, economic opinion, so social opinion, right? Or like, you know, objective opinion, subjective opinion, right? Or a slandering opinion, whatever. You see, so as long as you have a noun or an adjective, you can use keyword division. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So now we know we have two different approach to come up with argument systematically. All right. And this approach, this two approach, okay, I've been using them for like, you know, decades. It works. Okay, as long as it's argument essay, it works.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you can start it to practice in this way, and gradually you will realize arguments are not so difficult to identify and to identify. All right. As long as you know, okay, I don't have much clear here, I use keyword. Right. And if you go through the past paper, this past paper I was forwarded to you as well because that's your homework. Okay. So starting from 2012, it goes all the way back. It goes all the way back to 1994, even before you were born. Okay. You can prove, doesn't matter which year, this two approach works. Let's use 1994. Okay, the oldest one we have here, right? So in the March of Folly, historian Barbara Tuchman writes, Uden was a business, a hadness, the source of self-deception. It's a factor that plays a remarkably large role in government. Very ironic. It consists of assessing a situation in terms of preconceived fixed nations while ignoring or rejecting any contrary signs. It is acting according to wish while not allowing oneself to be deflected by the facts. Okay, kind of, you know, propaganda. So some people would claim that Tuchman calls wooden-headedness plays a remarkable large role in all organizations and indeed in all human affairs, right? And then so it's a what, self-deception, right? So you try to convince yourself whatever you just did, it's right. Okay, you have no other options, right? So write a careful, reasoned, persuasive essay that defend, challenge, or qualify this idea about the prevalence of wooden-headedness in human actions and decision. Use evidence, of course, we don't care about that. Okay, so this prompt, it's a slightly different from, you know, 21st century prompt. Okay, this is 20th century prompt, right? So first of all, true, false, or pros, cons. So we have defend, challenge, qualify. What does that mean? To defend, to challenge, to qualify. When you see to defend, it's like, you know, you totally agree. That's why you want to defend. 100% agree. To challenge, you disagree. You don't have to go this far, but you disagree, right? What is qualify? Half. All right. So this claim presents some kind of, you know, truth, but it's missing some point. So basically, defend, challenge, qualify is another way to say to what extent you agree or disagree. All right. Remember that you can say to a certain extent, right? Somewhat, right? So in that case, you qualify. All right. So part of this statement, I agree, but this statement is not well-rounded. It's a little bit, you know, narrow-minded, okay, and it's, you know, ignoring okay, or missing another crucial part. And let me tell you what, right? So wouldn't had it in humans action and decision. What is that? Prevalence, right? So it's kind of like a trend, right? So human being, okay, a government, society, business, whatever, okay, this is a human nature. We try to deceive ourselves, right? We try to convince ourselves whatever we do is correct, or we have no other options, right? So this kind of statement, if you want to defend it, that means what? To a very large extent, you agree. If you want to challenge, you will say to a very large extent, you disagree. All right. And if you want to qualify that, yeah, you know, it presents certain truths, but there are exceptions. There are exceptions. Does that make sense? So when you say defend it, challenge, qualify, it's another way to say to what extent you agree or disagree. All right. Okay, so step one, true, false, or pros, cons. It's the prevalence, right? So you can paraphrase this word to like a human nature, or it's a pattern, right? So this wooden-headedness is a pattern in human actions and decisions. True, false, or pros, cons.
I feel like it's true, false.
True, false. Okay. Sunny, type your answer. Tad, what do you say? True, false, or pros,
I
cons?
also say true, false.
True, false. Sunny, what do you say? You can stand up against, oh God, she agrees. I was going to say you can stand up against this too. Right? Yes, I agree. It's a true false, right? Because it is a trend. It is the pattern of human actions and decisions. So it is, right? So we're going to prove why it is or why it is not, right? Okay, so in this case, participant or keyword? Participant or keywords? So the subject would be wooden-headedness.
I feel like it's keyword.
Keyword, okay? So we are locating nouns or adjectives, right? So we have what? Wooden-headedness in human act. Oh, we do have action. We have decision, right? These two are nouns, right? So can we divide action or decision? Oh yeah. How? Action is a hypernym, right? What type of action? What type of action? Can I say, okay, we conduct action all the time in our daily life, right? So ask yourself, what kind of action I will have in my daily life? My action, shopping, right? Decision, shopping. Is that right? When you're shopping, when you look for a job, career, right? What else you do on a daily basis? What kind of decision you make?
What to eat.
Thank you. What to eat, okay. What else? Who to be friend with, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole bunch. All right. Now we open the door. There are a whole bunch, right? Shop, career, eating, friend, be friend with whoever. Okay. Voting, right? Could be. Dating, right? Whole bunch, right? So now we can divide action or decision, right, into whatever we conduct in our during our daily life, right? And you group them, right? So shop, eat, I probably will say this is, consumption, right? Consumption. And then career, this is life planning, hypernym, right? So life planning. And then social, right? Social life, right? Political, So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, four hypernym now. Okay. When we make a consumption decision or action, we have this wooden-headedness, right? How? We may ended up consuming something that we don't really need, but we convince ourselves we do need it, right? Or we sign up to gym, right? But we don't attend. Do you have a membership card to any gym and you never go? No? Good for you though. I used to be a member in a gym, and then they open 24/7. I said, yes, I can do it. But I ended up attended once. Okay. And I signed up for their membership, right? Wouldn't have it, right? So I lied to myself. I believe I can, but actually I cannot, right? And then how about your life planning? You try to come up with your 3 years plan, 5 years plan, and you try to push or force yourself, right? And you believe you can do it, end up you cannot. And when we failed, we can come up with all the excuse to say it's not my fault, it's not my fault, right? So that's self-deception. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I hope this section really help you to better attack the argument essay. All right. And you can use this strategy, this approach to your school assignment. All right. And then you will find this argument essay much easier to handle than before. But we need to practice. So now we need to practice this. No, first of all, make sure the prompt is a true, false, or pros, cons, right? And after that, we need to decide which approach we want to come up with the argument, right? Players or keyword. Okay. And next step is the one we really need to practice, to group them and come up with a hypernym. So this hypernym, hypernym normally ESP, right? Economy, society, politics, right? And more related to our daily life, right? Social, right? Shopping, all this, all right? You just need to think about which senior generation I should use so that I can have more room, more freedom to present arguments, reasoning and evidence. All right. So you give yourself this space in your body paragraph by choosing a hypernym. All right. But this hypernym cannot be too general. You cannot say that wooden-headedness is bad. That's too general. That's opinion. That is not argument. Argument, you must have a concrete idea, but it's not too general. It's not too detailed. All right. So go back to this hypernym concept. All right. So tool, it's a hypernym, but it's not too general. No, because we have a concrete idea associated with tool, right? But if you say beautiful, it's not a good hypernym to serve as your topic sentence because beautiful is too general, right? Or dangerous, that's too general. So you're gonna ask yourself, dangerous, right? Dangerous is adjective. That's the time we divide it, right? So dangerous in what way, right? Dangerous to your life, physical life, or dangerous to your mental status, dangerous to your career, dangerous to your social life, So in this case, dangerous will be your thesis, your opinion, and then your danger to social life, to your physical life, to your mental health, to your career, that would be your hypernym for your arguments. Does that make sense? All right. So this is our session for today. All right. And did we cover everything? Yes, we did. We're awesome, right? So we have the necessary elements. We kind of focus on the first two parts, right? Thesis and arguments, right? And we talk about how to decipher the prompt to make sure we don't end up writing an off-topic essay. We also introduce 2 different ways to come up with arguments systematically, players or keyword. All right. And when you come up with all these players or the keywords, the type, okay. And next step is to group them into a hypernym. And that way your body paragraph, it's like a very flexible. It's up to you though. You can present with as many pieces of evidence you want. All right. And now comes to our homework. Our homework today is deciphering argument type, true, false, or pros, cons, all right? And based on that, come up with your thesis and your arguments. You do not need to write the whole paragraph. No, you just need to indicate, okay, this is your assignment. I will forward this past paper to you. So you have options. You can choose whatever prompt you want from this document, all right? Choose one prompt, and based on the prompt, you identify, is that true, false, or pros, cons, all right? And then you need to identify what approach you adopt to come up with your arguments. And based on your arguments, you write your thesis statement. And don't forget, your thesis statement must be what? Defensible. This is your opinion towards the topic that is discussed in writing, right? So that's your rule A. So your thesis must be defensible and on topic, all right? So that would be your assignment today. We're gonna practice our knowledge based on the class today. Is can you tell whether it's pros, cons, or true, false, all right? And based on that, can you come up with arguments systematically by using hypernym, right? And then based on your arguments, you can determine your opinion towards this topic. That's your thesis, all right? So in your homework, you're gonna have 3 parts. Part 1, identify true, false, or pros, cons. Part 2, indicates which approach you are using to come up with your arguments. And then list your arguments with the hypernym, right? And then part 3, write your thesis statement to address directly to the prompt.
Where do we find the homework?
I will forward you this document, all right? I will send it to your TA and your TA will forward it to you. Because I'm not in your group chat, all right? So I will send it to your TA will send it to you, all right?
Okay.
So do we know what this assignment is about? Do we know how to work on that? Tad? Do we know?
Yeah, I understand.
Good. Julian?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Sunny? Yes, thank you. All right. So that's it for today. Do you have any questions? Or anything I can do for you, ladies and gentlemen, before I let myself go? Anything? Anything? No? Okay, if not, I have a question for you. Okay, Julian, is this course helping you in preparing AP Land?
Yes.
Yes, right? And thank you. All right. Is there any suggestion you have that you want us to include in this class?
No suggestions.
Not yet? Okay. But you're always welcome to make a suggestion, all right? Ted, is this class helping you?
I would say yeah, it does.
Thank you. It does? Okay. And any suggestions? You have
So
any
far, not
ideas?
really.
Not yet? Okay. Sunny, you can type. No suggestion? Okay, thank you. All right. So if you have any suggestions or like,
wait.
yes?
For the homework, can you repeat the thing? Because I want to write it down. I want to write down like what I have to do so I don't forget it.
All right. So you need to choose, first of all, you choose a prompt from this document. Okay, it's altogether 7 pages, all right? So I forward that to your TA, you will have it, okay.
Mhm.
In this document, you have the option to choose any of this prompt, except the one we went through together, all right? So whatever we did not talk about, you choose one prompt, all right? And step 2, you need to do is decipher whether it's true, false, or pros, cons, all right? And then you're gonna indicate what argument approach you use, participant or keyword, all right? And after that, based on the approach, you need to come up with 3 arguments. 3 arguments. That means you're gonna have groups, okay, in 3 groups, 3 hypernyms, right? And based on your arguments, all right, so you convince yourself now, right? Your arguments, you convince yourself, and then you can come up with your thesis statement. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So normally it's argument first, and then you have thesis statement, because you need to convince yourself first before you can convince your audience.
Okay.
All right.
But
Okay then.
For argument approach, it's either participant or keyword, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay then. So go have fun. Okay. Try to explore your mind. Now we have a new way to approach arguments, right? And practice on that. And then gradually you will get used to it. And then argument essay will be like a piece of cake to you, even when you work on your college application. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, thank you for attending, ladies and gentlemen. You all have a good night. All right, I will talk to you next week. All right.
Thank you.
Pleasure. All right, talk to you next time. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.